Hi guys, we are ready to start, aren't we? Welcome to our online English lesson. Today we'll speak about some means of communication. They are traditionally called the media. The mass media actually rule the world and play a very important part in our lives. Live and learn. So many men, so many minds. Today we'll talk about mass media. There are lots of types of them. For example, the newspapers, the internet, TV, radio, magazines, and others. We know about politics, crimes, cultural and educational events, and we can hardly imagine our life without information. How do you get information? What types of mass media do you use in your daily life? And why? What do you think about it? We'll talk about all these topics at our lesson. So, open your books on page 44 and the topic of our lesson is in the news. Let's start. Vocabulary. News and media. Exercise 1. Match the pictures 1, 4 to 3 or 4 of these words and complete the table. Then listen, check and repeat. You can see here 4 pictures. Picture 1, picture 2, picture 3 and picture 4. Under them there is a table and our task is to complete it with 3 or 4 words from each picture. But before we do this work, let's learn the new words. Look at the screen and let's repeat the words together. So let's start. Vocabulary, news and media. Block, headline, interview, local news, news flash, podcast, current affairs program, international news, journalist, national news, newspaper, news website, report. And now let's come back to our exercise 1 and let's complete the table together. Look at the first picture. What can we see? We can see a man. He is a news presenter and he interviews this pretty young woman. So let's write down into the first column words news presenter and interview. We also can read here local school in use. So let's write down local news and current affairs program. So we have 4 words into the first column. News presenter, local news, interview and current affairs program. Picture number 2. What can we see here? We can see a woman. She's a journalist. We can see here breaking news. So let's write down news flash. We can see the flag of America. So we are talking about international news. And what is this woman doing? She is reporting. So we have 4 words in the second column. Report, journalist, news flash, and international news. Picture number 3. What can we see here? We can see a newspaper. We can see a big headline, newspaper, and we can see maybe some national news. So we have 3 words into the third column: headline, national news, and newspaper. And picture number 4. Blog, news website, and podcast. So we have 3 words into the fourth column: news website, blog, and podcast. Now please, let's check up our work. Listen and check up.
CD 2. Track 1. 1.
News presenter. Local news. Interview. Current affairs program.
2.
Report. Journalist. News flash. International news.
3.
Headline. National news. Newspaper.
4.
News website. Blog. Podcast.
CD 2. Track.
Okay. Well done. And now exercise 2. Complete the sentences with the words in exercise 1. The headlines in today's newspapers are all about the football match. Sentence number 2. I'd love to be on TV for a newspaper and important people. I'd love to be we need a job, a profession here. Let's look at our words and think. I want to be a journalist on TV and for a newspaper and interview important people. I want to start on the internet so I can write about my holiday. Guys, let's think where I can write about my holidays. I can write about my holidays in my blog. So let's complete this sentence. I want to start a blog on the internet so I can write about my holidays. I often read teen news on my computer. It's a news website for teenagers, of course. Number 5. I don't usually download, but this one is interesting. It's an interview with Justin Bieber. Interview is something we can listen, yeah? So it's podcast. Number 6. My uncle's he reads the news on air. My uncle's news presenter, and he reads the news on a current affairs program. Okay, we continue. Exercise number 3. I want you to answer this question. Question number 1. Do you prefer to read the news in a newspaper or online? I think most of us read online, but maybe you read the news in a newspaper. So think and answer. Question number 2. What was the last news story you read about? Can you name any news presenters? Do you prefer local news or international news? So answer this question, guys. And now open your students' books on page 45. We go to reading section. We are going to read the text survey, teens and the media. But before we start reading, let's watch a short video, Media in Britain. And after that, we'll read the text, answer the questions, and discuss about teenagers and the media. How much time do they spend? How often do they watch TV, read news? Can they live without news? And others. So let's start watching the video.
Hi, we're going to look at the media in Britain. We're going to find out about television, radio and the internet. But first, what do you know about British newspapers and magazines?
The British love their newspapers. 2 out of 3 British people over the age of 15 read a newspaper every day. That's about 26 million people. Even more people read a paper on Sundays. What do they read? The 2 most popular daily newspapers are tabloids, The Sun and The Mirror. Over 3.5 million people buy The Sun every day, and over 2.25 million buy The Mirror. In tabloid papers, you'll find more gossip, more human interest stories, more pictures, and not very much serious news.
These newspapers are larger. They're called broadsheets or quality papers. About 1 million people buy the Daily Telegraph and about 700,000 buy the Times. There's also the Independent and the Guardian. In these papers, you'll find more news, more serious articles and fewer pictures.
Altogether, there are about 130 daily and Sunday papers in Britain, some national, some local. There are also over 6,500 different magazines. Of course, nowadays, not everyone actually buys a newspaper. Some people read their newspaper online. Over 75,000 people visit this website every day. The number of people in Britain who use the internet is increasing all the time. A lot of people also listen to the news on the radio.
BBC Radio 4, the news at 7 o'clock. The Chancellor, Gordon Brown.
The BBC is the British Broadcasting Corporation. It has 5 national radio stations, 39 local stations, and 2 terrestrial television channels. The BBC is not commercial. There's no advertising during their programmes. British people have to buy a television licence every year. The BBC uses the money from this to make television and radio programmes. Here they're filming Middlemarch, the classic novel by George Eliot.
There are 3 other terrestrial TV channels. There's ITV, that's independent television, Channel 4 and Channel 5. These are all commercial and have advertising. Of course, there's satellite and cable TV too. There are lots of satellite and cable channels. On average, British people watch almost 24 hours of television a week. Most households have at least one television, and 46% of British children have a television in their bedroom.
How often do you watch TV?
Nearly every day.
Quite a lot, every night. Usually I watch television every night.
I watch it for about 2 hours a day, not very much.
Each day I watch an hour of television.
What's your favourite programme?
My favourite programme is Neighbours.
My favourite programme is The Simpsons.
I like sport, mainly on television, football, rugby.
My favourite programmes are the soap operas like EastEnders.
My favourite programmes are EastEnders, The Simpsons and Friends.
My favourite programme's MTV.
My favourite programmes are Friends and The Simpsons.
What are you going to watch tonight?
Tonight I'm going to watch Neighbours and Friends.
Tonight I'll probably watch Top of the Pops. I'm going to watch Neighbours and Friends. Tonight I'll probably watch Top of the Pops and Friends.
84% of British homes have a video recorder. That's more than in any other European country. What kind of videos do you watch?
I watch action and sci-fi videos.
I like comedy films. I like old films like Casablanca and Citizen Kane.
I watch skateboarding and rollerblading videos.
I normally watch comedy videos.
It's interesting that in Britain more people have a television than a washing machine. But my washing machine has a terrible picture.
Okay, I hope you like this video and you have learned something new from it. And now we go back to our text. Before we read it, let's look at the picture and answer some questions. So, question number 1. What is the girl doing? As we can see, this girl is reading, and she is reading a newspaper. What do you think she is reading about? As we can see, she is reading about some local news about her town, maybe. Do your family or friends read a print newspaper? Nowadays, we don't usually read print newspapers. They are unpopular, we don't have time to buy them, and it is more comfortable to read something on the internet, to read the news online. But maybe your grandpas, grandmas like or prefer reading print newspapers. So think about you and your family and try to answer this question. And now exercise 2. Can you predict the results of the survey? We haven't read this text yet, and our task is just to predict. How many percent of teenagers watch news flashes about important events? As we can see the answer, 85% of teenagers watch news flashes about important events. How do you think? How many percent of teenagers watch the news on TV? Think and try to guess. How many percent log on to news websites? How many percent read the news every day? How many percent watch current affairs program? And how many percent could live without newspapers? Now let's listen to this text and you'll check your answers. Were your predictions correct or not? So let's start.
2. Survey: Teens and the Media. In last month's issue of Teen News, we asked you to email us your answers to the following questions. Have you read or heard today's news headlines? Where do you usually get your news from? Do you read or listen to the news every day? What news are you interested in? Here are the results. Most of you, 69%, prefer watching the news on TV, and 35% regularly log on to news websites. 31% of you read or listen to the news every day, but only 16% like watching current affairs programmes. You're more interested in national news than international news. But nearly 85% of our readers watch news flashes about important events in the world. So, is there any room for newspapers in today's world? 23% of you said yes, but more than half, 51%, said you could live without them. Jake and Lily explain their views. Jake Moreno, 16.
I've never bought a newspaper, I usually find out about the news through a social networking site. That's how I heard about the tsunami in Japan. One of my friends added a link to a news flash. News websites are good too, because you can listen to podcasts and watch videos.
Lily Sheldon, 15.
I sometimes look at news websites, but I haven't had time this week. Too much homework. I usually read a newspaper on the school bus. I follow the local news, and I also read the sports reports.
Okay, and now let's come back to exercise 2 and check up your predictions. So, 69% of teenagers watch the news on TV. 69 is the correct answer. 35% log on to the news website. 35. 31% read the news every day. 16% watch current affairs program. And 51% could live without newspapers. And now exercise 4. Answer the questions. What type of news are teens interested in? National news. How many teens think newspapers are important? As we remember from our text, 23% of teenagers think newspapers are important. How did Jake find about the tsunami in Japan? Jake found out about the tsunami from a newsflash link a friend added to social networking site. Why does he like news websites? Because you can listen to postcards and watch videos. Question number 5. Why doesn't Lily read the news every day? Because she doesn't always have enough time to do it. Where does she usually read a newspaper? She usually reads a newspaper on the school bus. Which stories does she read? She reads the local news and the sports reports. Boys and girls, I want you to read this text yourself. Try to understand, maybe translate it into Ukrainian if you need, and to answer 4 questions you can see in the beginning of this text. Let's look at them one more time. Have you read or heard today's news headlines? Where do you usually get your news from? Do you read or listen to the news every day? What news are you interested in? Answer these questions. After you read this text, answer the questions in exercise 4. If it will be difficult for you, you can listen the answers one more time in our lesson. Also, your home task for the next lesson will be in your workbooks. Page 34. Let's look through exercises. Exercise number 1. It is a very interesting task. Hope you like it. Label the pictures with these words and news. You can see 7 pictures here, and your task is to write down these words. Let's look. Number 1, local news. Number 2, international news. The next, exercise 2. Match these words to the definitions. We have 7 definitions and your task is to write the correct word. When one person asks someone else a lot of official questions, interview. You'll write the other 6 sentences. And exercise 3. Match the sentences beginnings 1-8 to the endings A-H. And the last exercise 4. Put the letters into correct order to complete the text. The letters are in the incorrect order, and your task is to write down them in correct order. And don't forget about the new words. Your task is to learn them, to write down them into your vocabularies, and to use them in your speech. Okay, my dear friends, I hope we did a lot today and you have learned a lot of new. I hope you liked our lesson. Thank you for your work. That is all for today. Our lesson is over. Goodbye.